Grim New England, Episode 3. Salem, the town that learned to fear itself. Grim events occurred in Salem, Massachusetts long before the town became America's Halloween capital. But before we start tonight's story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications to catch future Grim New England Tales episodes, and comment below with the New England legend, haunting, or dark historical case you'd like us to cover next. More than 3 centuries after the witch trials, Salem remains distinct from most other New England towns. In October, its streets fill with tourists in black cloaks and costumes, while ghost tours pass through historic colonial neighborhoods lit by lanterns and icy Atlantic fog. Psychic shops stay open late as visitors explore museums, cemeteries, bars, old churches, and candlelit tours that recount Salem's haunted history. Storefront windows glow orange amid the sea mist rolling in from the harbor, and gradually the city seems less like a typical Massachusetts town and more like a place caught between history, myth, and performance. Visiting Salem, you experience a strange psychological weight. You begin to realize that the lively Halloween celebrations that now define modern Salem overlay one of the darkest chapters in early American history. To truly understand Salem, it helps to envision life in 17th century New England. Many of us imagine colonial America as quiet and simple, nearly peaceful in retrospect. Yet communities like Salem Village were actually harsh environments, demanding, physically, emotionally exhausting, and inhabited by fragile, stressed residents living under constant pressure. The Puritans who colonized Massachusetts genuinely believed in the reality of the devil. To them, Satan was not merely symbolic. He was an active presence, continuously moving through the world, recruiting followers and attempting to destabilize Christian communities from within. They viewed the wilderness around their settlements as a spiritually dangerous zone, filled with tangible threats and supernatural evil lurking just beyond the edges of civilization. Despite facing many hardships such as disease outbreaks, poor harvests, tragic infant deaths, harsh winters, fires, and border conflicts, the people of New England saw their land as a fierce battleground between good and evil. Salem Village in particular had been a fragile, close-knit community long before any witchcraft accusations arose. Its residents, smaller and more isolated than the nearby bustling harbor town, often quarreled over land, inheritance, church leadership, money, and social rank. Old family grudges created a tense atmosphere. In a society where land and reputation were everything, disputes often became personal insults, debts, and disagreements over church matters left deep wounds. The mood in Salem was already tense and uneasy before anyone mentioned the word witch. Reverend Samuel Parris, the village minister, was controversial right from the start. Before becoming a minister, Parris had failed as a merchant in Barbados, leading many in the community to distrust him. His congregation frequently argued over his salary, authority, and leadership, making the church itself a source of division in an already fractured town. Then, during the winter of 1691 into early 1692, strange things began happening in the Parris household. Initially, these incidents probably seemed more confusing than frightening. Reverend Parris's young daughter Betty and his niece Abigail Williams started experiencing violent fits and convulsions that witnesses struggled to understand. The girls screamed uncontrollably, hid beneath furniture, twisted into strange positions, and insisted invisible forces were attacking them. Soon other girls in the village started showing similar symptoms. Some described feeling sharp pains or tiny pinches they couldn't see. Others reported seeing dark figures standing nearby or moving through rooms at night. The village doctor eventually examined the girls and believed the symptoms were supernatural in nature. That single conclusion changed everything. Community quickly set out to find the witches. Modern historians and psychologists have debated for decades about what could have caused the girls' unusual behavior. Some suggest ergot poisoning from contaminated rye crops might explain certain physical symptoms. Others point to trauma, stress, social pressure, teenage psychology, or mass psychogenic illness, a phenomenon where psychological distress spreads in groups and causes real physical symptoms even without a medical cause. But it's important to remember the girls weren't necessarily pretending. People under extreme stress, especially in communities filled with fear and strict beliefs, can experience symptoms that seem very real to them. Once the town accepted witchcraft as the cause, every scream, twitch, fainting spell, and nightmare fueled the panic that swept through Salem. And then the accusations began. The first person accused was Tituba, whose story is quite fascinating. She was an enslaved woman brought from Barbados to Salem by Samuel Parris. Tituba was seen as different in many ways. Different culture, appearance, language, customs, and social standing. Communities often fear outsiders first, and stories spread that Tituba told tales from the Caribbean and practiced fortune-telling. One popular story involved predicting the future with egg whites in water. Whether these stories were true or not didn't matter once the panic caught on. Fear turned Tituba into a symbol of the unknown. Then came her confession. Under pressure and likely after being physically mistreated by Parris, Tituba admitted to witchcraft. She spoke of dark creatures, animals talking to her, and the devil recruiting witches in Salem. To us today, her words seem strange and clearly false. But to the scared people of Salem, it confirmed all their worst fears. They believed the devil was real, witches existed, and evil was lurking among them. After her confession, hysteria spread rapidly. Others like Sarah Good and Sarah Osborne were also accused. Like Tituba, they were on the edges of Salem society. Sarah Good was poor and disliked, while Sarah Osborne had broken social rules and faced criticism. This pattern matters because the first accusations targeted people Salem already mistrusted. But as the trials continued, no one was truly safe. One of the most unsettling parts of the Salem trials was accepting spectral evidence, meaning accusations could be based solely on dreams, visions, or supernatural experiences. When a witness claimed to see the spirit or specter of someone tormenting them at night, courts often regarded that testimony as legitimate evidence. There is no rational defense against invisible accusations. If someone claims your spirit attacked them while they slept, how can you prove otherwise? The legal system itself became part of the hysteria. Confession became the safest way to survive. Those who confessed to witchcraft were often spared execution because they appeared cooperative. Conversely, those who denied the accusations and maintained innocence faced hanging. This created a horrifying incentive: confess and live, deny and die. As more people confessed under pressure, they were required to name others as witches to demonstrate their cooperation, causing panic to spread rapidly through the colony. Entire families were accused, neighbors testified against each other, and old grudges resurfaced in accusations of witchcraft. The atmosphere in Salem grew to near total paranoia. As hysteria grew, even some of the town's most respected citizens became targets. One notable example was Rebecca Nurse, an elderly, devout woman widely admired. Her accusation stunned many as she embodied the opposite of how Puritans envisioned a servant of the devil. Initially, the jury found her not guilty, but the court pressured them to change their verdict. Ultimately, Rebecca Nurse was convicted and executed. That moment revealed something truly frightening about Salem, because by then the trials no longer felt like genuine legal proceedings searching for the truth. The system had gained its own unstoppable momentum, and once fear takes hold in a community, innocence seems to disappear. But no figure from Salem is more haunting than Giles Corey. Corey was around 80 during the trials, a stubborn farmer with a complex and often violent past. Years earlier, he had reportedly beaten a farmhand so badly that the man later died from his injuries. Corey wasn't seen as saintly or particularly likable, but when hysteria gripped him, he made a choice that turned him into one of the most unforgettable figures in American history. After being accused of witchcraft, Giles Corey chose to stand his ground and refused to enter a plea. Under English law at the time, courts couldn't proceed with a trial unless the accused officially pleaded guilty or not guilty. Corey probably knew that if he refused to plead, the government wouldn't be able to seize his property after his execution, allowing allowing his land to stay within his family. The authorities responded with brutal torture. Corey was laid on the ground while a wooden board was placed across his chest, and heavy stones were carefully stacked on top of him one by one. This torturous process continued for days. Witnesses described how the elderly man was slowly crushed beneath the mounting weight as officials repeatedly demanded that he plead. According to legend, Corey refused to surrender, answering only with two words: more weight. The pressure overwhelmed him and he was crushed to death. Even centuries later, it's hard not to be haunted by this story. The slow cracking of ribs, the suffocating inability to breathe, the relentless increase of weight hour after hour watched by the townspeople, and Salem folklore suggests the story didn't end there. For generations, locals reported seeing Giles Corey's ghost wandering near old burial grounds or appearing before disasters struck Salem. Some believed his spirit was seen before the Great Salem Fire of 1914, and others described strange figures moving near Gallows Hill late at night. By late 1692, the rumors had spread far beyond Salem village, and even powerful families found themselves caught up in the hysteria. When the wife of Governor William Phips became entangled in the accusations, those overseeing the trials began to realize that the panic they helped create was spiraling out of control. What started with suspicion of outsiders and vulnerable community members was now reaching into the colony's social and political core, causing the certainty that fueled the trials to falter. Prominent ministers who once supported parts of the proceedings started voicing doubts. Increase Mather, for example, publicly argued that it was better for guilty people to go free than for innocent ones to be executed, a surprising change given the tense atmosphere of Salem at the time. As public confidence waned, Governor Phips eventually shut down the Court of Oyer and Terminer altogether. Once spectral evidence was no longer accepted as legitimate, many accusations crumbled almost instantly, as they had largely been based on fear, pressure, rumors, and collective paranoia, evidence that was never truly there in the first, but by then the damage was already done. 19 innocent people had been hanged, one man crushed under stones over days of agony, and others died behind prison bars while waiting for trials that perhaps should never have happened. Entire families were shattered, with Salem's hysteria spreading like an uncontrollable disease. What makes this story so haunting even centuries later is that there was no real clean ending. Some involved later apologized publicly, while others never showed remorse. The colony tried to compensate the surviving families, but even today, Massachusetts is still working to clear the names of some of those accused, showing just how deep the scars of Salem truly are. Maybe that's why Salem still feels unsettling, beyond ghost stories or Halloween decorations. Over time, those tales matter less because Salem itself became a place where history and legend blend into one. Today, Salem is both a real Massachusetts city and a living monument to fear and tragedy. In October, it transforms into a major Halloween hub, filled with haunted festivals, performers, psychic vendors, gothic shops, costumed crowds, and ghost tours winding through the old colonial districts. Visitors often explore iconic sites related to the trials, such as Old Burying Point Cemetery, one of the oldest in the U.S., where weathered gravestones tell stories of centuries past. Many also visit the Witch House, the only remaining building directly linked to the trials, once owned by Judge Jonathan Corwin. Inside, cozy dark wooden interiors and low ceilings create an unexpectedly intimate and historical atmosphere. Then there's the House of the Seven Gables, forever connected to Nathaniel Hawthorne and Salem's more Gothic literary history. Overlooking the harbor, the house isn't part of the trials, but the entire property resonates with the same spirit of guilt, paranoia, and haunted memories that have shaped Salem's story over the years. Salem's deep connection with themes of fear, religion, and evil didn't end with the witch trials in 1692. In many ways, the city still wrestles with its history. Spend some time there, especially at night when the lively tourist scene quiets down, and you'll notice an undercurrent of tension that hints at Salem's complex past. A fascinating example of this is that the Satanic Temple chose Salem as its headquarters. Once a city swept up in religious hysteria, where innocent people were publicly executed after neighbors accused them of devil worship, Salem has become home to one of the most controversial modern modern religious organizations. They picked Salem precisely because of its historical significance. What's even more intriguing is that the Satanic Temple doesn't actually worship Satan in the traditional sense. They see Satan more as a symbolic figure, a literary archetype representing rebellion against oppressive authority and blind obedience. Their views draw inspiration more from Paradise Lost than from horror films. Whether you agree with them or not, their presence in Salem is deliberately provocative, prompting visitors to reflect on the darker themes behind the witch trials. Today, standing in Salem, especially after dark, you can still sense how deeply the city is rooted in that uneasy mixture of fear, morality, religion, rebellion, and hysteria. That's what keeps Salem feeling so unsettling, even over 3 centuries later, because the conditions that fueled the witch trials weren't unique to colonial New England at all. Fear still sneaks into communities today. During uncertain times, people often look for enemies. Authority figures and leaders can benefit from widespread panic, and societies still find it hard to tell the difference between real threats and collective hysteria once fear takes hold. Salem serves as a powerful reminder of what can happen when fear overtakes reason and kindness. If you enjoyed tonight's episode, please like the video, subscribe to our channel, turn on notifications so you never miss an episode of Grim New England Tales, and share in the comments which New England story still leaves you feeling unsettled. Remember, many of the darkest chapters in history were written by people who believed they were completely right. Stay curious and cautious.